Have you ever heard a story so chilling, so real, that it makes the hair on your arm stand up? Tonight, we travel to the outskirts of Alwar, Rajasthan, back to the early 1980s, to uncover a true legend that still haunts a small desert village. This is the story of the girl who spoke the dead man's language. In this quiet, sun-baked village lived a teenage girl named Kamla. She was, like many others, uneducated, unable to read or write, and her Hindi was far from fluent. Her life was simple, predictable, until one scorching June night when everything changed forever. Kamla's mother was jolted awake by a terrifying sound, her daughter screaming in her sleep. She rushed into Kamla's room to find the girl sitting bolt upright in bed, but the voice coming from her lips was not her own. It was a man's voice, deep and resonant, chanting in perfect, fluent Sanskrit, Om Kal Bhairava Aya Nama. Kamla, who had never heard these words, was reciting ancient mantras known only to the most learned priests. The villagers whispered in fear. There was only one man in the entire region known for using such powerful mantras, an infamous and feared Tantra practitioner named Ravnath. He had died just a month earlier under mysterious circumstances. Some said he was murdered. Others claimed one of his dark rituals had backfired. But everyone knew one thing. Before he died, he lived alone in a small mud hut at the very edge of the village. And every night since his death, a faint, eerie red light still flickered from within its empty walls. Soon, Kamla's behavior became more and more disturbing. She refused to eat. Sitting for hours just staring blankly at a corner of the room, she would suddenly speak in that same deep, male voice, predicting rainfall with uncanny accuracy and naming villagers who had died long before she was even born. The possession was becoming undeniable. During one terrifying episode, her father, desperate to bring his daughter back, tried to restrain her, but Kamla turned, her eyes burning with an ancient fury, and spoke in a voice that was old, cracked, and filled with rage. "You people ended my ritual unfinished," she snarled. "Now I will complete it through her." The family froze in horror. It was him. She was speaking as the dead tantric, fearing for Kamla's life and their own. The village elders and priests gathered for a final, desperate attempt to save her. They tied Kamla with ropes in the center of a courtyard and began chanting purification mantras. But instead of weakening, Kamla began to laugh. It wasn't a girl's laugh. It was a man's, deep, echoing, and full of malice. "He will not leave," she boomed. "He wants what was taken from him." As if on cue, a violent windstorm erupted, swirling sand into a vortex that extinguished all the lanterns, plunging them into darkness. And then, they saw it. A shape began to form within Kamla's own shadow, a tall, menacing figure with long hair, glowing eyes, and a trident in his hand. It was the specter of the head priest. His voice, trembling but firm, shouted into the gale, "Who are you? Leave the girl." Kamla's body twisted into unnatural positions as the tantric's voice roared back, "I lived here. I died here. Now I will live again." In a final act of defiance, the priest threw a handful of holy ash directly onto Kamla's forehead. She let out a scream so piercing, so inhuman, that every dog in the village began to howl in terror. The ropes binding her snapped as her body convulsed violently. The very earth beneath her feet cracked under the immense spiritual pressure, and then in silence her body went limp. Her eyes closed and she fell unconscious. Kamla woke up the next morning with no memory of the past 9 terrifying days. But the story doesn't end there. That very night, the tantric's abandoned hut mysteriously burned to the ground. There were no footprints, no trails, no explanations, just a pile of ashes, and buried deep in the sand nearby, a single, ominous trident. To this day, the legend lives on in Alwar. The villagers will tell you that the tantric was never truly vanquished. He simply moved on. They say Kamla sometimes still mutters Sanskrit in her sleep, and the patch of land where the hut once stood remains barren. Nothing has ever grown there again. Travelers who dare to pass that spot at night report hearing a ghostly whisper carried on the wind, "My ritual is not complete." And some swear that when the desert wind shifts just right, they see a dark shadow with a trident following them home. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the unknown. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't want to miss our next exploration into the world's most chilling legends.